Hi, Eli.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Here's Kendra.
Angelique is telling me that the link isn't allowing her to join. So 1 second.
Hello, everyone. I'm here. I'm just, what is it? My camera's not working. So I am here.
Thank you, Kendra.
Welcome.
Okay, while Angelique tries to join, I will call the meeting to order. I call this meeting to order at 3:08 p.m. Okay, we have roll call.
Yes, Chair. Aurora Black,
Here.
Kendra Garcia,
Here.
Chair Gish.
Here.
Pam Parfit,
Here.
Angelique Montoya Chavez.
Trying to join.
Miriam Jahar.
I haven't heard from her.
Eli Fresquez
Here.
and Chris Pommier.
He's excused.
Okay. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments or changes needed to the agenda? If not, may we approve the agenda as is?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you.
Okay. Approval of the agenda roll call. Aurora Black,
Yes.
Kendra Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Gish,
Yes.
Pam Parfit,
Yes.
Angelique Montoya Chavez,
He is still trying to join.
Eli Fresquez.
Yes.
Agenda is approved.
Thank you. Next is approval of minutes. And I do have some requests. And this is not just for these minutes, but going forward. In the draft that I have, the minutes don't list all of the current members that were in attendance. And there's only 6 of the 8 members that were in attendance.
The one I had like 2 run together. So there were all 8 there, but they were like 2 in a line, like Angie and Eli were together. Oh no, they need a return after Angie and a return after Eli, and then there's the other 2 members are there on my property.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I apologize. It is so hard to edit the PDF documents, but I do have on the minutes that I submitted, Member Black, Member Garcia, Chair Gish, Pam Parfit, Angelique Montoya Chavez, Miriam Jahar, Eli Fresquez, and Chris Pommier. I see where that happened. It's just we get a PDF and it's very hard to edit the document because it's generated straight from PrimeGov. But I'll make a note of to double check. It's hard to edit. If I do an enter, it'll throw everything else off.
Okay. If you need to list them like that, if you could put a semicolon or something in there so that they're separated, that would be great.
Okay. Understood.
And then on the list of attendees, according to my notes, the complete list would be Gina Maria Opalescent, Robin Garrison of Disability Rights New Mexico, Gemini Shell of the Governor's Commission on Disability, an unidentified guest, Regina Wheeler, and Yu Halona. And some of them are not listed on there. So if you could add.
I do have Robin and Gemini listed, but I do not have their associated job titles or
Okay.
Unfortunately, again, it's very hard to edit on the PDF.
So yeah, if you could make sure that those names are listed, that would be great. And that's all the edits that I have for the minutes.
I have a couple.
Okay.
And these pages are from the beginning of the packet, not the page in the minutes. So I'm sorry if that's confusing. There's listed a meeting at Hugo Chavez, but shouldn't that be Genoviva Chavez? And then that's on page 19, and then paragraph 4. And then on page 21, paragraph 3, talking about the emergency kits, it says, Kathleen says we have procured kids, KIDS, instead of kits, KITS. On page 22, paragraph 8, when I'm speaking, it says Santa Fe, and then it says unknown term, and the term is either ride or paratransit. So ride/paratransit is what that means. And then on page 40, paragraph 2, Kathleen is speaking, and the transcript says occlude, and it should be include. Oh, this is transcription. I'm sorry, transcription too. Anyway, yeah. So those are completely opposite meanings, occlude and
Yeah.
include.
I appreciate that because I didn't notice those. I looked through it, but I can't go through it all right now. So
I
yeah,
will
so
add
if we
those
could-
changes.
yeah, and if you could just, you don't have to change the transcript necessarily if it's too hard. That would be great if you could just add a note into the transcript.
Mhm.
But if you can't, then add it into the minutes as a note for the transcript.
Okay.
That would,
The transcript is in a Word document, so
Okay.
I can show the edits for that, crossing out and then changing. So I'll take care of that.
okay, thank you. So next we have public comments.
Do we need to vote? We need
Oh
to
yeah,
vote.
sorry, yeah. So approval of the
Move
minutes.
to approve the minutes. Yeah, move to approve the minutes as amended and the transcription as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve as amended. Aurora Black,
Yes.
Kendra Garcia,
I'm good. Yes.
Chair Gish,
Yes.
Pam Parfit,
yes,
Angelique Montoya Chavez,
Yes.
Eli Fresquez,
Yes.
minutes are approved as amended.
Thank you. Next, we have public comments. Are there any public comments from any guests or on behalf of anyone who can't attend the meeting?
Chair Gish, there are no public comments from the website.
Thank you. Anyone attending have any public comments from anyone? No? Okay, if there are no public comments, then next we will move on to presentations. And I do not see Brian Williams. I don't know if he was invited or not, but I made a request to invite him. And I didn't hear anything back. And so Eli, if you want to take this on, or we can postpone it until the next meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I propose we kick it back and
Okay.
give another opportunity for Brian to join us.
All right, and please, as I stated in the last meeting, please invite Brian Williams to our next meeting. Thank you. So next is action items. 7A, discussion of procedure of appointing new member. I have not posted publicly the request yet. There's been a lot of things happening for me in April. And I needed the time to take that I took. And but I will be posting that within the next 2 weeks, definitely. As I stated in the last meeting, what I'm planning to do is keep it as it is, but add a link to the current website. And I'm trying to figure out how to have it be posted on Facebook so that it does have a link that works, because when the Facebook posts are posted or social media posts are posted, it's often an image without a working link. And so I'm trying to figure that out, but maybe we can have the text posted in the post itself along with the flyer image, because that way it would have a working link to our webpage. And it will also be posted on the city website, so maybe we can link it to that instead, and have both links in the city website link. So I'm trying to figure that out strategically of how to get everyone the information so that they know what we do and there's less confusion this time, hopefully. So that's my update on appointing a new member. Next is, and I did not edit this properly, Eli, and I apologize. 7B, I think we called it the event, commemoration event, or not a dinner. Would you want to give an update?
Sure. So thanks you, Chair. So last time we met, we set up a subcommittee, and in that subcommittee, it included myself, Kendra, and Angelique, along with a member of the public, to join us in planning a commemoration for the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we're sort of finalizing what that name will be, but we're going with the Accessibility Awards. Tentatively, we have Tuesday, July 25th at 6 p.m. as our time for those awards, tentatively, but we are moving forward, and we also have a location that is, we're really close to finalizing that. There's a couple of things we want to review with them, and that will be downtown Santa Fe. And so we're really excited. We want to manage expectations though, because we're still in the planning phases, so things could change. But it looks like we're going to be headed towards having these accessibility awards, approximately 2 hours, guests between somewhere between 50 and 100 guests, depending on how things work out. So we're really excited about it. It's really about lifting up the disability community. It's about celebrating Disability Pride Month, which is in July. It's about commemorating the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is turning 33 years old this year. And it's about bringing together the disability community, leaders in Santa Fe, community members, places of public accommodation, private sector. So we're working on it. We're actually meeting pretty regularly now with our subcommittee, talking about some to-do lists that we're starting to develop. And so more to come. And we'll be sharing that as we get closer to that date and as we kind of get more firm agreements with different aspects of the city and with the different accommodations. So we're really excited. And I don't know if Kendra or if Angelique have anything to share since they are in the subcommittee. Or Pam?
No, if they have something to add, maybe answer my question.
Yeah.
When you say it's subject to change, is that the venue and the date or just the venue? The date is really important to me.
Yeah, I would say yes, both. However, we're really close. So we would be happy to share that within the next week and a half or so. Hopefully we'll confirm everything.
Okay.
The date and time and place.
Is there any chance the date could move closer to the 1st of July?
Honestly, I don't know, Pam. We're kind of working that out. Yeah. I would say that we're really close. So hold that time, the Tuesday, the 25th of July, 6 p.m. That's most likely where we're headed. I just want to be careful not to overpromise at this point because we're still working it out.
Thank you.
Mhm. And so this is Kendra. I just wanted to say, actually, no, I think Eli, you covered everything, so I had no other additional notes. Just what is it? As soon as we get all that confirmed, then we can move on to the other steps.
Thank you, Kendra, Eli, and Angelique for working on this. I know you have a very short window of time to get everything done. So Regina, go ahead.
I just had a tiny thing to add that Eli has been coordinating with me, and the current time and date and location is on the mayor's calendar and my calendar. But of course, we'll adjust that. And, you know, with it being that far out, he'll probably, you know, good chance of his being available on another day as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, I think you're on mute.
Yes, Kathleen.
So the next item is 7C, continued discussion on updated ADA coordinator job position, description and process to hire, recruiter and Flipbook as a recruitment tool. And Regina, you had said to Robin in an email, she had requested, Robin Garrison from Disability Rights New Mexico had requested an update on the hiring process. And I'm wondering if you have an update for us.
I sure do. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. We received the recruiters report yesterday on schedule. So I just actually was just reading it before the meeting. He's got 2 strong candidates in the report and 3 sort of second tier candidates. I'd say from my looking at it, I feel like there's really one really strong candidate and a couple second tier, but that's great. So the next step is for the city's Human Resources Department to generate the list of eligibles, because while we've had all of these people applying through the portal so that the city can like have it follow the normal process. Now I need a list of eligibles from the HR, and we'll set up interviews immediately. I'll probably interview all 5 because there just aren't that many and just really want to get a sense. And then yeah, we can make a selection as quickly as possible. I wanted to offer, Madam Chair, if you and maybe anybody else on this group wanted to do a second round of the finalists. So if we do 5 and we're like, you know what, these 2 would be great. You want to help us choose? I thought that might be a possibility of being involved there. And then steps after the, we do, have some constraints with respect to salary, as we've all kind of pointed out. I think, I've let the mayor know that, we'd really like to choose the best candidate, but so we'll all have to be thinking about, can we get this person? And, maybe have a first choice, second choice kind of a thing going. So then we'll make a decision. We send it to HR. It usually takes about 30 days for them to get a conditional offer to the candidate. Then it usually takes about 30 to 60 days for them to get the final offer, because they do like background checks and physicals and those kinds of things. And then, so sometimes we can get someone in the door 90 days after we make our recommendation. 90
And that
to,
was, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say 90 to 120, because it all depends on how long they need after they get the final offer. So something like that, but that's kind of the sequence.
Well, I'm glad that this is moving forward. It feels like forever, but I'm sure it hasn't been as long as it feels.
You get
So
used to that around here, Madam Chair.
One question that I have that I actually meant to ask before was, I noticed that it did say that there's a physical exam required in order to be hired for the position. And I was wondering what that entails and what the accommodations process is for a candidate who has disabilities.
So I can speak to you generally that what they do is they have the bottom of the job description said like what you have to do. So this person will have to go out and inspect sidewalks, and they'll have to go out and make recommendations to different city facilities, and probably do training. So they'll have physical exam that is commensurate with those responsibilities. And so but I don't know what the reasonable accommodation process is associated with that. So I can ask HR and get that for you.
Yeah, maybe we can invite HR, because there's some questions that I have too about just the general hiring process, as we had discussed in prior meetings. So maybe we can plan, I don't know if it's for the next meeting, because we do have a presentation, but maybe in July, we can invite HR to explain what the process is and make sure that
By
all
then, we should
understand.
be past interviews and past conditional
Right, I'm not
offer.
talking about this, I'm
Oh.
talking about just in general, so for the hiring process, because we had also discussed how the website application isn't accessible, and there's different things going on with just general hiring in the city. And so I would love to know what their process is and what they're doing if there's a reasonable accommodations request. Because there's nothing posted online on the city website, and I haven't heard anything about what the process is. Go ahead.
One little thing I can add, and I see Eli has his hands up. During the interview process, which is before the physical, we do say, can you perform the duties of the position with or without reasonable accommodation?
Right. Yeah.
And so there is that right off the bat, and then
Yeah.
the person says yes and goes from there, but thank you.
Yeah, and that was a change that was made because most of the job positions don't actually state that, but they actually need to by law. So, yeah, that's one of my questions to HR, is to make sure that the reasonable accommodation process is adhered to and is clear. And so, but I'll get with you on that. It's probably not going to be in June. It's probably going to be for July. And that's just to catch up with HR and to kind of meet and greet and have a general understanding, so we're all on the same page. If there are no further comments or questions about anything that we just discussed with the ATA job coordinator position and hiring process, we can continue. The next item is.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
yeah,
did
go
I
ahead.
hear about maybe there being an invite for folks on the committee to participate in
Yeah.
a round of interviews?
Yeah, and we had actually asked that in the past, so I'm really happy to actually hear that, because I think that it is important for people with disabilities and people on this committee to be included in the hiring process because of how much an ADA coordinator will impact accessibility and inclusion in the city of Santa Fe. And so, yeah, Eli, if you wanted to be part of that, you would be the person I would invite directly. I don't know if we can have anyone else. I guess we could have 3 people legally, so we don't have a quorum. But I know me and you have been working with the city a lot, Eli, so I'm thinking maybe you, me, and Kendra, since she's my vice chair. I think that would be a good team.
I'd be happy to, and frankly, it'd be an honor, but I also defer to the city too.
Right,
But yeah, I would be happy to.
okay. So if that happens, then we'll invite you and Kendra to the interviews. Regina, go ahead.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. I just wanted to, I'll want to be in the interview as well to sort of gather that. And so if you guys feel comfortable with 4-on-1, I just wanted you to be aware of that number.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine. Yeah, I assumed city staff would be there. So yeah, yeah. But let me make a note of this so that I don't forget. Okay. So the next item then is 7D, discussion and plan to implement exclusive city meetings, accommodations process, Zoom hybrid meetings, ASL CART, languages, loop system in city buildings, an ongoing need to correct and update community access. And this item was because of the discussion in the last meeting about accessibility features being offered to the public to include members of the public in meetings. And I did hear in one meeting, Councilor Villarreal mentioning that they have Spanish interpreters and different people like that, and that they're looking into expanding access across the board. Like I said, she did not mention disability access, but I'm sure that is part of it. And so I basically wanted to have a really brief discussion, continuing discussion of this, and if have an opportunity to update us on any changes with the loop system that's gone on, if anything has changed, and as well as like the city council meetings, the governing body meetings for ASL and CART and all of that, because that last I've heard has not been included, but really should be. And so I don't know if you have anything to add, Regina.
I do, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. So this is, I think, a really high priority, largely partly because Pam has requested a reasonable accommodation, but it's really on behalf of the entire community, not just Pam. I think we have learned from this meeting that the live captioning services make a very large difference in quality. The transcripts meet your needs right out of the bat and they aren't gobbledygook. So I hear you and have been working on that. Unfortunately, and I did invite the city clerk to this meeting because I am having trouble getting past her with live captioning. She just is attached to the Zoom thing. And, you know, I told me the same thing she told me before. And I also am having trouble getting, you know, with the live captioning services that we have on this meeting, they can also provide real-time Spanish. They can provide ASL. I calculated out it would cost something around $35,000 a year to do that at all the council meetings, which didn't seem, you know, way out of bounds to me. I think, and I'm not sure there's a dollar amount that the ADA Act, Americans with Disabilities Act says that, you know, an amount above which then it becomes sort of maybe a harder stretch, but So, but that's the downside, and I just need to figure out how to get the message to the city clerk that this is not an option. This is what we need to have. But the good news is the hearing loop is going in. They're gonna do the mesh on the floor. Facilities is gonna pay for new carpet so they can do the full mesh. And the council chambers will be closed for a week in June while that gets installed.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
how can I express my thrill? It's called a phased array. And from your email, you didn't receive the quote from Romy Price. I'm rereading it from a month ago, but you did get it. Is it from the Albuquerque firm that I recommended, Romy Price, and the hearing and I don't know, hearing and vision, something like that? They are doing it.
It's
Because I
Romy,
know-
yes.
They are competent. There are installers and then there are installers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Regina. This is huge.
Huge.
And I was involved in the back and forth emails during the pandemic where it was just kind of going nowhere and there was no one to take it over. And so knowing that this is moving forward is wonderful.
Well, thank you guys so much, because really you're doing the work to make our government accessible for all people, and that's really, really important. And then I did wanted to ask for your clarification or confirmation that we are seeking, as a matter of an accessibility issue, live captioning, Spanish translation, and ASL. All three are really necessary for accessibility. Is that in your mind? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so
Yes.
much. That's what I thought too.
I see Pam's hand up.
Go ahead, Pam.
I have not gone to any of the governing body meetings because they were not accessible to me. I would go if an organization said, you better show up for this because it mattered to us. I tried to find the meeting schedule for the governing body meetings on the website, and I was unable to get that calendar. What do I need to know to access that? I can find all these individual things like the MCD, but the actual calendar, not just all these city meetings, but the governing body once a month meeting that will have all of these features. I really need to know how to get that.
Go ahead, Regina. You're on mute.
I just Googled it, and it's the first link I got when I Googled City of Santa Fe council meetings. And when you go to the page, it tells you what all the committee membership is. And then when you scroll down, it has the calendar of all the meetings for governing body, finance committee, public works committee, and quality of life committee.
And Regina, just to be clear, that's the visual calendar that
Yeah.
it's not a list of, it's not an accessible list.
It's
of-
not
of
That's
dates.
accessible
correct.
to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that-
see it. Oh, you're right. It's in a calendar form. That's not.
it's an image. Yeah, and so that that's actually one of the things on my list that is a problem. It's like it's made it all the way down because there's more pressing things right now, but that is on my list of issues with ADA compliance because that calendar is not accessible.
Thank
I'm
you.
not visually impaired and I cannot read it.
And it's also not accessible for someone with color blindness. It's not accessible for anyone with even partial blindness. I have to blow it up really big on my screen in order to see.
And so
What is
what we
what?
need is just a text list.
The
Okay, I'll submit that
dates.
right now.
These are the dates. I couldn't
Okay.
find that anywhere.
No, I don't think you will find it. Thank you.
No. No, and that would also make it Googleable because you would be able to search for governing body meetings and that list would come up. So, because that calendar right now really is not searchable and not findable and not readable. Pam, do you have any more to add?
No, I don't. I just want to reinforce the accessibility because once you pay for Spanish, ASL, and CART, we want people to come, but if they can't figure out when those meetings are held, you're gonna sit there and say, well, nobody uses it.
Yeah.
It's because we can't find it.
It's true. Eli, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just throwing this idea out there for the city and folks, but I wonder if it would be helpful, and we've done this in the past, for the committee to vote on drafting a letter of support and sending that to the mayor or others. I know we've sent it to the city council with varying degrees of success. They haven't been unsuccessful at times. Sometimes they have been successful. So we could look at some of those similar sort of memos that we had drafted in the past. Maybe it's an opportunity to give support to Regina and her efforts, and showcase some of the importance, some of the legal opportunities as well, with reasonable accommodations and being forward leaning. A lot of times when there are public meetings and communications that are going out, they rely on the disability community to make the reasonable accommodation requests on them. So it sort of shifts the duty and the burden onto the disability community to make some requests. Best practices is to have something already accessible. So this would be amazing, and something that I think the city could be really proud of. So just offering something, could be a letter, could be a memo. I don't know. Thoughts on that, Madam Chair, others?
Yeah, Eli, I very much agree, and I would include Renee Villarreal in that, because she was the one who discussed it and supported it in the governing body meeting, and said that she was really actively working to make the meetings more accessible for everyone. And so I think that she's a good ally in this. Pam, go ahead.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Didn't catch everything that was said, so if I missed it, please bear with me.
Okay.
Are you going to, Regina, when you put an accessible copy of the minutes, of the meetings for the governing body on the website, is it going to say clearly that these are accessible in these ways? There's a hearing loop, there's Spanish translation, there's CART, and there's ASL, because if people don't know it's there, the dates won't matter, because I know I never try to go, because I know it will be a waste of time unless they just ask me to be a warm body.
Yeah, it's true. And I have seen in other areas, I have seen in the invitations for public meetings, it will list out on the main page what is being offered, and that if anyone needs additional accommodations, what to do to request that. I know that that's not happening in the city. And so, but that is the process, and that is what I would request, so that it is clear, and so that people know what is needed if they need anything else.
In addition.
Yes, in addition to what
in
is
addition-
just being offered as a policy, as a flat policy for inclusion. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Pam. That's very important.
Education. So many people are hiding in dark holes because they don't even try anymore. But if you
Yeah.
tell them, you get a chance. If you do this, you're going to see a lot more participation in different demographics.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's why I never, the same with me, is that before there was Zoom offered as an option for the city council meetings and governing body meetings, I never joined either, because I couldn't get downtown to a meeting. So it's just these hybrid formats and different formats and different forms of accommodations and inclusion are incredibly important to just participation, and also to building a community that truly is accessible and inclusive for everyone who's living here. Aurora, go ahead.
This seems like if this is instituted, it could be a nice article in the newspaper.
Yeah.
In addition
No,
to being in some of the materials that the mayor sends out or the city
Yeah.
sends out in email.
yeah, it would be. And hopefully we have an ADA coordinator soon. And hopefully this will be implemented about the same time that they come in. And so that would be a wonderful article about the work that the city has been doing for it'll be over a year by then, to make the city more inclusive. Regina, go ahead. You're on mute.
So much, Madam Chair. I wanted to respond to Eli's proposal for the letter. I think that would be great. It would be very, very helpful if you could say this is actually necessary for the city to implement at this point. And if there is any dollar amount that's the maximum above which, because I thought that old number used to be $25,000, but I guess they better have increased that. And so that would be great because I calculated out that it's way less than 50,000. And then I think, thank you so much for all those details. I will submit that to the web gal. She's been very responsive. As you know, Helona submitted a bunch of the ones that you guys gave us last time and got those fixed right away. And I think we could do press. Thank you so much for that idea. We can work with Michaela to get a press piece out about that, because it's really true. People need to know that the city's changing their accessibility features, and it's a whole different ballgame. And then I wanted to ask one thing. In the list of accessibility features that we should put on the schedule list, should we include a wheelchair accessible? The room is?
Yes, there are some issues that I'm aware of with the city council room, but it is mostly accessible. I mean, it is technically accessible for wheelchair users. There is a ramp. One thing that I'm aware of is that the podium is a standing podium. And so that has been an issue repeatedly in the past. And so, you know, I don't know if there's an ability to have a movable microphone, but that would be essential to me, to have the ability to include anyone, even just someone who needs to be seated, who can't stand long, because those lines get really long. And when people are making public comments, and I know I would have a hard time standing for that amount of time. And I see people who are likely able-bodied and they are leaning against the wall because it's such a long time to wait. So so think about that. That would be my suggestion for more inclusive, is to have an inclusive podium. Eli, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to talk about the financial costs, there are no bright line rules when it comes to how much something would cost. It's whether it's reasonable or unreasonable, which really has to do with whether it's a fundamental alteration or undue financial hardship, which is usually pretty hard for a public body the size of Santa Fe to argue, but it kind of depends. So it's going to be case by case, what is reasonable, what's not. Language access is outside of the American Disabilities Act, but is covered under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. So there are other sort of legal requirements that come into play when you're talking about language access. The other thing I wanted to mention was on City Council, and it's been a minute since I've been there, but I do believe that there's a platform that goes up, and so where the City Council actually sits. So I think that might be a place where we would really have to have somebody go in and do an assessment to think about what are some places that we may be able to make for wheelchair accessibility, or maybe places where it's unreasonable because of existing conditions. But that really can't be done until an assessment's done. But I think it would be a good thing to know, find out what are the technical requirements for the seating arrangements, what are some of the slopes of the of any kinds of ramps that are there. It's hard for me to remember, it's been a while. But I would suggest that maybe we consider having, myself or the Governor's Commission on Disability go, or maybe we could do some collaboration and just do a friendly assessment and take a look and see what we got. That might help us think about what accessibility solutions there may be.
Go ahead, Regina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you guys remember seeing in the news, maybe it was just about a year ago, I'm not sure if it was a congressperson or a local elected official that was in a wheelchair that had to be like, they had to like lift him up and over the dais to get him. It was so inaccessible their space was. So that'd be really great, Eli, so that we can solve the problem before we have it and behind the dais. I think it might be accessible, but it's really a good idea to take a look. And then I think the question about being able to make public comment is a really good one too. Like those are, you know, there's three pieces. You're sitting in the audience and you can see the captioning, you know, all those things. So that would be great. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Pam.
Madam Chair, in addition to the happiness I want to express over the phased array, I would suggest doing that walkthrough like Eli is suggesting to make the whole space accessible before you rip up the carpets and lay the phased array in case another impact. Not that I want to delay that phased array, but if there's a possibility that something else would have to be changed, you've got carpet around the speakers platforms and everything. I just think it should be, the whole space should be looked at for accessibility in every way before you tear anything up for the hard of hearing community, much as I would not want to delay it.
Regina, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, we'd be talking about probably a year delay, Pam, if we were to wait. And I think the carpet's costing like 35,000 or 30,000 or something like that. So I'd almost rather just keep on going because the other changes are going to be harder and structural. I'm not sure if it's poured concrete, if it's framed down there. So I think that my recommendation would be we'll make this one and then we'll just fix it again if we need to. Because, you know, if you get 6 months of accessible hearing, that's worth it. Even, you know, even if we have to redo it, I think. That's my thought. It might be a long delay.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the thoughts just to be aware of, Regina, is that I do remember that we used to have a member, David McQuarrie, and he used a scooter and he would constantly hit that podium when he was trying to get down the ramp because it was in his way. And so that podium probably needs to be moved or removed altogether in place of a table or some other option that would be accessible for someone using a scooter or wheelchair. I know that other communities do have some kind of a lower table where the public speaks and the microphone can be moved to be lower or higher for someone standing or sitting. And so that is something to think of. I know that, I mean, I'm with you 100% on not delaying it. But I know that that is also a huge barrier for physical accessibility that is not that big of a change to move the podium. And so I'm bringing that up. Eli, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Something to think about. My one of my former colleagues he was a commissioner in New York City and he was a wheelchair user. There are wheelchair accessible podiums that are lower. They're not super expensive. I mean, they range everywhere from not that expensive to wildly expensive, but something for us to think about having that available for folks if they are wheelchair users to have that equal access because it's pretty hard to have a full length podium that's also accessible. I haven't seen that, but what I have seen are smaller podiums that you can utilize as an accommodation.
Regina, go ahead.
So Eli, you're talking about an auxiliary podium.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, I see. But then the thing that that Chair Gish just said about the podium as it is in the way makes me, maybe we should at least get a quick assessment on the podium change, because that is a little bit more contained than, you know, changing all the ramps and the dais and all that. And before we do but you know, those guys are full steam ahead. They've cut POs, they've got scope. We probably bought the carpet, so I'll have to jump in there fast.
Yeah,
to
so
see.
the things that I remember is that David McQuarrie was able to get down the ramp, but when he had to turn in order to access the floor, that podium was completely in his way and he always hit it. And had to like back up and move around it and maneuver around it in a really tight turn right there. And so it was really, it was just disrespectful to him to
Yeah.
have to do that. So not even if it's the right width, just the turn of it is too sharp. And so, yeah, so that needs to be looked at definitely.
Maybe it could be just, I'm thinking maybe if the podium could be moved more into the, right, towards the, and
I was
that's-
thinking the exact same thing. Yeah.
That's a pretty easy change. I'm gonna shoot them a message and see, God, they're gonna get to love me.
Well, we appreciate your support and help, but we can't do this without, it's like, it's a whole team effort. Like I keep saying, it's all of us. So, so is there any other comments or anything to include in this discussion about accessible meetings, for city meetings? If there's no more to add, we will
Madam
move
Chair,
on. Yeah.
did we want to vote on a letter that we had done?
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
I think we have done 2 or 3 letters within the last, since end of pandemic approximately.
Yeah.
Um,
Normally we have a draft, but I feel like this is really time sensitive.
yeah,
And I think we still would, I mean, I don't know the process. It's really not written very well in the city rules. But I feel like we just need to get this out and we can identify the main points that we will be including in the letter.
Right.
I guess if we really need to hold a vote and vote on the actual letter, we can hold a special meeting for 5 minutes and vote on it. But I would say just let's move forward and
I
go
think
with it.
we had talked about this previously, Madam Chair, and Aurora had suggested that as long as we have the basic understanding what the letter would be, that we could vote on it, draft it, and send it out.
Yeah, and then it would be included in the next packet.
Right.
Yeah.
But I defer to Aurora.
Well, it seems like this could be something very simple, that
Mhm.
we support inclusivity in all meetings of the council, et cetera, by including a contract with a vendor who can provide the ASL, all of it. I mean, that's
You're breaking up.
only
You're breaking up,
2
Aurora.
or 3 sentences.
So the vendors that we had identified was ASL, CART, and Spanish interpreter. And then there was also the loop system. So,
Yes, that's very important to tell people that a hearing induction loop is available. And Regina, this is a very difficult educational part of that phased array. It is the education of hearing aid users. They are not told by audiologists whether they have a T-coil or not. The city needs some kind of card that they can access when they come in that tells them it's available. There's a universal international symbol that's recognized all over the world. And that if they do not know if they have a telecoil, this card is to be taken to their audiologist so that it can be activated and they can be taught how to use it. Most hearing aids have telecoils, but because users or buyers of hearing instruments are not able to absorb all of the information about do this, do that, here's how you take care of it, here's how you get to your TV, your phone. The audiologists have to spend so much time on the basics that they don't even tell them about the telecoil. And so it's a great thing to put it in there, but if you do not tell the public that they have to go to their audiologist and get it activated, then people are not going to understand what that means. There's a card that HLAA, Hearing Loss Association of America, was printing. And now it's not printable. It's not, I can't access it. I went to Romy and asked her for her version of it. And she, in 2 or 3 requests, she has not supplied me with any, showed any of it to me. But I would say she's the first person to get those cards from, and then possibly have a way for the city to keep track and keep them in stock. I'm trying to get them myself. People don't know that they have a telequill. And they don't know if it's activated.
Regina, is there a way to add additional web pages to the ADA coordinator pages that are on the city website? Because Tom wasn't sure if we had the ability to add more pages, but I'm pretty sure that we do. Because I remember when I went in there and I was adding pages, there wasn't any sort of limit. There was just, it was an awkward like sort of tree that it creates, but there wasn't any sort of limit. And I know that the website's been updated, so I'm thinking it probably is more functional now. Because that's one thing that we could add is information when the city loop system is in place, we could add information to our website pages for the public about public meetings and what's being included so that people can find it, and also link that page to the governing body pages for more information about accessibility. So
Yes.
it would be linkable
I
and
threw
to
a couple of sentences. Sorry, I threw a couple of sentences in the chat.
thank you. So I will read this. So Pam, that's important, and I will think about including that as a suggestion in the letter as well, of clear language to identify accessibility features that are included in the city on the website, and to in general ways on the, we could even do a Facebook page post to let people know that the governing body meetings are becoming accessible and inclusive, and link it to the same website page. So my brain is just going. But for the letter, the MCD supports inclusivity in all meetings by contracting a vendor to provide ASL, CART, and et cetera. And I have my list. Yeah, sorry. My list includes ASL, Loop, CART, Spanish interpreter, and Zoom attendance. So that's what I'm thinking.
It should say hearing loop,
Hearing Loop, okay.
and there should be a
Add all
link
that.
to find out what that is and
Yeah.
direct them if they don't know, if they have it. There's a loop in the hearing aid, and then the city council chambers will have the loop, which they can connect to, but they have to know it's in their hearing aid and activated.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make all that, how to connect all the pieces in my head right now while I'm trying to put a letter together. So my poor brain is multitasking. So the list of accessibility features: ASL, Hearing Loop, CART, Spanish interpreter, and Zoom attendance. Is there anything else that we're forgetting?
Madam Chair, that's what I was just had my hand up for. Verbatim minutes, is that an accessibility feature? Because they're not doing them now, and that's another thing that we get with this contractor that does the live captioning.
Yeah, and that would be included in CART, so it would be easier to do with CART. But yeah, that is part of CART, but that is, it's an additional thing because they would have to post the transcript basically.
And then I think, yeah, thank you, that was it.
Yeah, okay. Pam, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just forgot to lower my
Okay.
hand.
Okay, so I will read what Aurora wrote from the start again. The MCD supports inclusivity in all meetings by contracting a vendor to provide the list that we just stated at all city meetings in conjunction with appropriate hearing accessibility provisions. Education of the city residents should be provided when these measures are available.
Can you be more specific about a timeline or what education means and who's going to do it?
Well, I
No,
think just,
we support it.
yeah, we support it because there would need to be strategic planning happening between what city employees would need to take on that role and how it would be updated to on the website, how it would be, I mean, I would say a statement needs to be made at each governing body meeting, at the beginning of each meeting. A statement would need to be made that this meeting is accessible. So,
I've just fallen behind. I fell behind even with the letter's intent. And then sometimes I have the captions moved under someone's face and then someone else starts talking and I lose the thread because I have to move them. This is a letter just supporting these things.
yeah, and it's because of, with what Regina had stated with the lack of current support from the city clerk, because she is not understanding the needs of the community. And so it's to clarify and add support as a committee for inclusive meetings
Thank you.
overall. Yeah. Regina, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair. Is there any way that we could make the language more strong and say that the city is actually required to provide these accommodations for accessibility? I would prefer that. I think that kind of language would be more effective than support, if it's true.
Thank you.
I would say it's true, because if it's including, we already know 2 people in this meeting alone aren't attending because of lack of inclusion that's been occurring. So that's a decent percentage of a very small committee meeting. Eli, do you have any thoughts or anything to add onto that?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think we can draft maybe we make it a memo.
Okay.
It's something that we have some similar language we could use. It's a little more specific and a little more forceful when it comes to when an accommodation request is made. Also, just to highlight that we would want the recordings, if the recordings are available, to those to also have captioning
Yeah.
included in those recordings. And
Yeah, and that's another thing, was that I sometimes, because I've been watching the governing body meetings randomly when I have time and ability, and the captioning is horrible. It's completely wrong, and sometimes it's just completely out of sync. Sometimes the words don't make any sense and it'll just be a completely garbled sentence. There's no way to participate remotely. Even just going back to watch a meeting that occurred last week, if you weren't able to attend and want to catch up, it's completely wrong. It's horrible. So Angeline and then Eli.
I actually like the idea of recording meetings, especially if somebody has cognitive delays, if they need to like rewind or go back or hear something again because they didn't process it. I think that's a great way to be inclusive.
Yeah, the meetings currently are for the governing body meetings and the meetings where the city councilors are running the meeting, finance and all of those are on YouTube. But like I said, the captioning, I don't know if it's Zoom captioning or if it's YouTube. I think it's YouTube captioning that they're utilizing, and it is absolutely horrible. It is completely inaccurate. You might get a sentence or 2 that's clear and accurate, and then the rest have at least 1 word wrong through the whole meeting. Eli, go ahead.
yeah, so most of the Zoom, so I'll say it this way. Zoom uses automated speech recognition along with YouTube. And I think for me, most of the time when I'm reading it, it makes relative sense. But I'm also somebody who can hear and I don't rely on it.
Right.
But for folks who rely on captioning to fully understand, the ARS system, the automated speech recognition, ASR, system is not enough. It's not sufficient. And that's why the captioning service is really, really helpful, because when you're done recording, you can make sure it's embedded within the recording and it makes it accessible on YouTube as well. It does take a little bit of know-how. So I'm not sure what the contract provider, if that's included in their contract, in order to have captioning supported in during live video meetings, but also in recorded meetings. You can do it yourself, like you can go into YouTube and edit it as you go along. That takes quite a bit of time. There are some companies right out of the box that will do it for you. There's one that I've used called rev.com. That one's pretty good. And then there's a few others that are three Play Media is another one. But it kind of depends on like what the vendor that's providing these like solutions is using. But Rev is one company that just specializes in captioning, both live captioning and recorded embedded captioning as well.
All right, I made a note of all of that, Eli. Yeah, that's, to me, that's kind of the point of the governing body meetings being recorded, is that they should be accurate. Of course, we can hear, those of us who can hear what is being said. But the text needs to be accurate. And I would even say that I know that a transcript can also be uploaded into YouTube as well, in addition to an accurate meeting being transcribed embedded into the video. And that's another accessibility feature. And that's available on multiple videos across YouTube I've seen, where people want to make their videos fully inclusive and accessible to people. So that is another option that we could request for the PDF to be uploaded in addition to embedded accurate transcription. Let me make a note of this real quick, hold on. Okay, so I have ASL, hearing loop, cart, Spanish interpreter, Zoom attendance being maintained, and verbatim minutes, which would be provided under cart. And then for that to be included in the recordings as an accessibility feature for the governing body meetings. And is this specifically governing body meetings, or are we requesting all meetings? Go ahead, Regina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I might propose, definitely governing body meetings, that actually is a special category in and of itself. There is finance committee meetings of a subcommittee of the council. And there are public works and committee meetings, and there's quality of life meetings, but 90% of the items that are at those subcommittees go to governing body to be
Okay.
heard in the end. So if you were going to include anything else, you might want to include what's also called the council committees. That's finance, quality of life, and public works. Those are actually a little bit harder at this point because they don't make a Zoom accessible option on those meetings now. So it's a bigger leap for them. And then, Madam Chair, I was keeping a list as well. I've got the accessible podium.
Yeah.
An accessible list of schedule of the meetings on the web, Zoom access, and then of course, information about accessibility features in the room and on the web.
Thank
Kind
you.
of a long,
Those council
long list.
meetings, that's where the budget gets hashed out.
Actually
So
not.
it's.
In fact,
Seems like
I
those
did
would be
actually
really
lobby for
important.
this.
It's not?
They get done at the finance committee meeting, and they were just done over the last 3 weeks. There was hearings Tuesday through Thursday of the last 3 weeks. It's at finance committee.
So then the finance committee seems incredibly important then if that's who actually funds any changes, including what we're requesting to happen with the city.
I'd say
Yes.
that would be your number one most important committee if you were going to pick one. Yeah, and Pam likes that too. I agree.
All right, so then I would say just as a general term, then let's just identify it as council committees, because then we can work with it to identify what's most important priority now, and then work towards long-term goals of completely accessible meetings overall.
Mhm.
Okay, so we want more direct language, but I like the general idea of what you wrote, Aurora. I like that general outline, but we can definitely make the language more direct and let them know that they are obligated to include citizens of this community in their meetings, and that requires accessible meetings. And like I said, I do know that Renee Villarreal is going to be an ally in this. And I can hold her to that because I did hear her say that in a public meeting. So, so she will be on our side. And so I have no issues personally with moving forward with this letter and sending it off and including it. In the
Shall we
next
make a
pack.
motion?
Let's make a motion to
Yeah, so I
approve.
move,
Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve what we've drafted with the stronger lawyer language and all the necessary accommodations as a memo or letter from the committee to go to, who are we sending it to? City council members? Who are we sending it to?
I
City
would
council
say,
members?
knowing what I know, it would be the mayor, city manager, city council,
Mhm,
city clerk.
mhm.
Trying to think of who else.
Okay. All right,
seems
so
like
that's the motion.
Regina, can you think of anyone else that would be included in that? Because I think that's just who, maybe city legal.
City attorney and city clerk, good idea. That's a great idea.
Okay, so city clerk, city manager, city attorney, mayor, and city council. Okay. Go ahead with your motion. Aurora, sorry.
Oh, okay, so the motion is, yeah, so the mayor's committee wants to send a letter to these people about having all these accommodations at the city council and council meetings with the language lawyered up strong as it can be according to the law. So that's what we want. Yeah.
This is a legal issue. It isn't just a polite request.
Correct.
So that's why we're gonna stick Eli on it.
Alana?
So I was unable to hear Aurora. It dropped off about accommodating at meetings with language, and then it kind of got garbled.
So it was like legal language that's more direct. And then did you get the list of who we're sending it to?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And then the list of accommodations that we're including in it, and that it's regarding all city council committees.
And city council meetings.
I have listed for that, what we mean by that as governing body meetings, finance, public works, and quality of life.
Mhm.
And then I want language that is, if possible, if it's not too long already, about the importance of inclusive public meetings and also the detriment to not having inclusive meetings, because there is a cost that is occurring by not including everyone in the community that wants to participate and that should be participating in these meetings. And the cost is exactly what's happening with the city council chambers right now, which is that since there's no assessment and there's no understanding of what is needed for accessibility, there's going to have to be a do-over for the carpeting and everything else, most likely at some point. And so while we'll have partial accessibility now, we might need to do more accessibility in the future, and that's an added cost. And there's a cost to not including people where things might move forward in the governing body meetings, where people like me might not have a voice to say how it would affect someone on SSI, or how it would affect a senior who is low income and low income housing. And then that cost gets put on that person when there is a burden that gets passed to reduce transportation or change a route or whatever is going on. And that is a burden and a cost that's unfair and undue to that community. Pam, go ahead.
I'm just experiencing in a memorable moment after 29 years with the Santa Fe Youth Symphony, for the first time, they put on their website, when you buy tickets to the Youth Symphony concerts, which was held at a completely inaccessible building and with no remediation possible, the Scottish Rite Temple. I was the founder of that organization. I have never seen grandparents blind, mobility impaired, hearing impaired. Once they put out on their website how you could enter and that you would be you would have front row seating, that you could be part of your grandchild's life or any other relative of these kids. I couldn't believe who turned out. It was amazing. And I've been to every concert for 29 years.
No, it's, I guess I would add as an addition to that, based on what you said, is clear communication. Because that's something that doesn't happen with the city very often. There is often not clear communication about what is available and what is happening and when and why and all of that, so that people know and know how to be included in meetings or events. And so that's what this is all attempting to do, is to have clear communication in a variety of ways. But also was what you were saying is clear communication about how to be included, not just what's available, but where do you go? Who do you go to?
Yes,
Yeah.
directions for a side entrance, someone to meet you and seat you with your walker. I mean, it was amazing to see who came to that concert. It was just incredible.
It's really cool. All right, I think we got this is a long letter. So so Aurora, do you want to continue on your motion? So everything that Aurora said, the list of accessibility requests that we identified, the meetings that we have identified to be inclusive, the council committee meetings, and who it's going to has all been identified. And then the language for legal language and direct language. And also, if possible, if it's not too long, which it might be, language highlighting the detriment if the city doesn't have inclusive meetings, what that entails, what that means to people with disabilities, elderly, and how it impacts all of us by being excluded. And how it impacts them. It's a cost. It's a literal value that is a cost to the city.
You can also go a very positive direction and say, this way we'll be able to include the valuable insights from.
Yeah, I'm
our
not saying it has to be written
ethics and
negatively.
life
I'm just
and
saying it
everything.
needs to be identified in there.
Yeah.
That there's a cost, and yeah, I'm actually hoping we do go a positive route. There's been enough happening in the last month with me that I'm going that way. So
So are
so
we ready for a second? I mean, do people
so
understand
is
what
there a
we
second
are
to
agreeing
approve?
to?
Yeah, is there a second to approve this letter?
I second the letter.
Okay. And then may we have roll call vote, please? And thank you, everyone. Helena, you're on mute.
So sorry, Aurora Black,
Yes.
Kendra Garcia,
Yes.
Chair Gish,
Yes.
Pam Parfit,
Yes,
Angelique Montoya Chavez,
Yes,
Eli Fresquez.
Yes.
Motion is approved regarding the draft letter to mayor, city manager, city council, city clerk, city attorney's office about accommodations at meetings with legal and direct language regarding the importance of including public accommodations, clear communications on what ADA accommodations are available, and who to go to for accommodations.
Thank you so much.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Pam, go ahead.
Madam Chair and Regina, do you have a time frame? HLAA is trying to update accessible places in the city. I'm working on it now. when can I think that this phased array might be installed so that I can update this master list?
Madam Chair, Pam, it's scheduled to be installed in June right now. I don't know if this little podium adjustment wrench we're throwing into it, I imagine they're gonna try to stay on track with that. So I would say by July 1st, you'll have a hearing room.
Okay, thank you so much. Did you know that Google Maps is now specifically identifying all looped venues, offices, public spaces? So I'm recommending that you put this on Google Maps. It's a feature that they just recently incorporated.
Okay, we can assure that they do that. So thank you for letting me know, I knew about that, but thank you for reminding me that that is an option. Because we absolutely can make that request going forward once it's completed, that it be included on Google Maps, that those features are available in those buildings or at those locations. Okay. If there isn't any more to add, I do need to move on. So the next item is discussion items 8A. Ice and weed removal in the city of Santa Fe is an ADA compliance issue. We all know that weeds are coming. The snow might be on its way out, but the weeds are on their way in. And I've even seen some of them growing already from last year that were not cut down adequately, and they have already begun to grow, crazy enough. And so I guess I'm wondering how, because with the process that I experienced last year, the process was to go to constituent services and make a request. And then it took, what was it, 6 or 8 months before I got a reply. And in that interim time, people in the community had just hacked down the weeds. And then the city just claimed, well, hey, it's done, you know, but I know that the city did not do that because I witnessed people hacking it down. And so, you know, clearly that's not how it should go. And so I'm wondering what can be done to expedite the process. As I've said in the past, when it is an ADA accommodation, like a blocked sidewalk, or blocked access route to a bus, to a job, to a school, all of those things, and someone needs that in order to access those facilities and those community resources. How do we get that expedited? Because right now it's going to constituent services and taking 6 to 8 months. And so I don't have any answers. I don't know the internal workings of the city. But legally, it's supposed to be a pretty immediate response to deal with an ADA accommodations need for access. And so, but right now the city doesn't have that. So I don't know, Regina. I mean, I'm looking at you, but I don't have any answers myself. But this process clearly needs to be worked out to be more functional than it has been. Yeah.
Pam, is your hand up for this item?
Oh, I didn't realize it's up. I'm sorry, but I do have a comment later.
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you so much for your comments. The city gets hundreds and hundreds of requests a day, thousands a week. It's burying us all. We don't have enough staff. We have a no spray. There's zero tolerance for any chemicals to be used on weed suppression. So there's only manual methods going on in town, which causes a huge weed seed load. There's just, it's just they make their way around the city, probably takes the whole summer to get the whole thing. So they are testing a new machine that steams the weeds and it supposedly kills them that way. to try to get ahead of it. Everybody's upset about weeds. Everybody's upset about potholes, weeds, and medians. And I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I guess what I would say is that is a department that's in Public Works. And so if somebody has having trouble with the CRM, you could feel free to send it to me. I think I remember the one you were talking about specifically. There was a big question about whether that was ours, but now I've walked it and that thing, that's definitely ours. It's a trail, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Both
what
the
I would
trail,
say.
both the trail and the adjacent sidewalk, because there's no one in that whole interim area that is there to maintain it.
Right, and it's not, as by city code, sidewalks are supposed to be maintained by the private property adjacent, but in that case, there isn't any private property adjacent, so.
No, and that
I-
whole section gets completely ignored, and it's bad for ice, it's bad for weeds, it's just,
Kind of bad. So I'll raise that particular issue, but if you could, if your guys are working on a CRM, just send me a copy and I'll make
Okay.
sure that I ask people to follow up with me when they finish it.
yeah. And the reason that I even brought that up is because it is adjacent to the affordable housing that is right there, where people are walking in that whole area to try and get to the mall. And they're, instead of walking down a safe sidewalk, they're just jaywalking and going across that really busy traffic. And I'm concerned for the senior citizens that are doing it, which I've seen. There's a lady who lives near my mom, and she has a walker, and she just goes for it, and she doesn't care what's going on. She's just gonna cross right there. If anyone's coming at her, they just have to stop. And my heart just sunk, and I thought, oh gosh, she should have a safe sidewalk to go down, but she couldn't get to it because of the 6-foot tall weeds. And so, and yeah, that weed issue literally took 6 to 8 months to be acknowledged by the city, and people were hacking it down in a really unsafe way because there were sharp points to where they cut it. I don't know what they used. It was not a saw. And so, so yeah, that's why I'm being so proactive about it, is because that is both the access route and the sidewalk are the accessible paths to access resources at the mall and across the street. Go ahead, Pam.
Oh, I have a question about the debris left over from the care of the ice on the roads in the winter is now in the bicycle lanes and along the sides of the road where all the cyclists are trying to get to and from school, work. It's bicycle month, bike to work, bike to school, and all the debris all over the accessible routes. Who's in charge of that, and how do we get it cleaned up for bicycle month? I don't know, I forgot the right term for this month, but this is the big month for getting to work and school on a bike.
Go ahead, Regina.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Member Pam. So that is Public Works as well. That's our streets division. And we have actually just completed a massive few weeks of sweeping effort to clear the roads completely. So if you could tell me what particular roads you're seeing the debris remaining in the bicycle lane, that would be really helpful, and I can get them out there on that. And part of the reason that we did that big push for the sweep, we always do it, but we're also, if you noticed, refreshing striping around town right now. And so they really needed to get it all cleared out for the striping, but we definitely might have a few that we could get it out of the bike lane some more. So I appreciate any list or feedback that you could provide.
Can I tell you one big one right now?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
A bike path that's just completely filled with sand and debris forced me to buy different tires for my bicycle because it was too dangerous. Old Santa Fe Trail from the museum around that corner south. It's completely covered in mud, sand, and maybe they swept up around it, but it needs to be made accessible.
Old set from the museum.
At Layho. And
At
going
Layho. Oh,
east.
Museum Hill.
Yes, and going east, and it goes around a big corner, and the weeds that grow there, it's a sharp corner, And there are joggers and bicycles and cars all converging. You can't see when the weeds get really tall there. And the bikes can't be in the weeds. They go out into the traffic and the traffic can't see the oncoming bikes. You can't see the joggers. That whole strip on that corner, weeds, dirt. And going south on Old Santa Fe Trail, it's a mess.
Thank you. I'll report that.
Thank you. I almost
Thank
killed
you.
somebody with my car.
Thank you, Regina, and thank you, Pam. So the next, oh, Eli, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to hop off, but I'm gonna hop back right in. So I'm gonna leave for about a minute and then be right back in.
That's fine. Thank you,
Okay.
Eli. Next item is 8B, ADA compliance process upon verbal, written, mailed, emailed complaint request for an accommodation. And this also includes the city clerk, because she is dealing with accommodations for public meetings right now. And at some point, I really would like to invite the city clerk to our meeting. I know you're trying, but I want a formal request for her to attend. Again, not next month, but probably July or August, because this needs to be, there needs to be a process. And that's why, you know, when I was working as an intern under David Chapman, why I said that it would be helpful if we posted the process to request an accommodation on the website, so that when someone made a formal request, they knew the process that was going to happen and what to expect, so that there's nothing that is hidden. There is nothing that cannot happen. If this is what's expected, it's basically a checklist. And so I know, Regina, you're still learning. I get it. The city clerk definitely needs to learn what the process is, and it actually really should be identical to what the process is that the ADA coordinator does, because there is a timeline, there is a time limit. When someone makes a formal request, then they need to have, within a certain time, and it's listed on the website, a reply in writing or in the format that they request with accommodations. And they need a reply, and then they need to have the ability to appeal if the reply is not in their favor. And that is federally required. That is the process. And so I just wanted to let you know, Regina, it's not you alone. This is literally the whole city that's under this, technically, for anyone who receives a disability accommodation request. But you and the city clerk in particular right now are the people that need to be following this the most for these accommodations. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to read through that list yet, but I would, when you have time, to please read through that page, because that is when, as soon as you get a request, that's what you should be referring to, is that list on that website, to say, this is what I should be doing, this is what I should say, what I should do in the process going forward. And again, like I said in the past, me and Eli are here to support you 100%. I know you got thrown into this as much as anybody. And so, you know, hopefully when we have an ADA coordinator, they will just know this process and know what to do, and hopefully work to even improve it beyond what we have been doing. But I just wanted to say that, because I know that there's been issues with the city clerk receiving accommodations and not following through with them. Go ahead, Regina.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that encouragement to follow the formal process. I must admit, I actually have 5 jobs at the city, and I did volunteer to be the ADA coordinator. I thought it was important. It was in my department. I'm happy to be here to help. My focus really has been on getting results rather than following paper process. But it's an interesting thing that you say, because I could possibly, as the ADA coordinator, basically write back to Pam and say, while the hearing loop accommodation is being fulfilled by the city clerk is declining to provide live captioning, blah, blah, blah. And then that would give, you know, then the formal process of an appeal, which is kind of what you're doing with the letter, could come back.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I guess I would say that I will try. I don't have time. I have so many jobs. The good news is also the other hard thing about the 5 jobs that I have is I'm also recruiting for them. So I did a lot of work on the ADA recruitment, the Complete Streets Director recruitment, the Director of Administration of Transit recruitment. I've also got a supervisor, engineering. So anyway, so there is a lot. It's gonna get better. And I will really try to look at that, but I'm so far behind on so many things. But it's a real priority to me to fulfill the requests. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just that, like I said, when there's a process, the person has a right within the number of days posted to receive a reply. And I think that to me is more important, is that they actually are replied to within the time frame, and that they know that you're working on it. Because yes, you're busy. I get that. Even though the ADA will say that it doesn't, lack of staff is not an excuse, you know. To me, it's important that the person making the accommodations request be heard and that the process be followed as much as possible. Which to me, more than anything, is the time frame. Because that is incredibly important, that somebody know that the city is working on their accommodations request. So, let's see. And yeah, we will work with the city clerk to get these issues fixed, because I know that she has not received adequate training. Pam, go ahead.
I want to second what you're saying, because the reason I need to know a time frame, I know it's paper and procedures, but a disabled person feels visible. If there's something that replies, if there's something that says within this time frame, you actually know you exist.
Yeah, and you know that something
It's
is
a
moving
feeling
forward.
of
Yeah.
overwhelming invisibility, and in some cases hostility that's directed at you because you are, and the quote of one receptionist, "You're making my job very difficult because you're requesting that I look at you when I want to be typing these notes." And I feel so invisible. And I think a lot of people feel like, why bother? It's just nothing will happen. But if you actually hear back and you know that within this time frame you really do exist, it's important.
Yeah, and I would say in addition to that, it's just a matter of basic respect. It's like if someone says hi to you and you just walk away, you know, that's how it feels. And so if, you know, if someone's coming to you and saying, I have a need in order to be included, and the person just ignores them, even if they're working on it, even if they say behind the scenes, you know, which I'm sure happens 90% of the time, behind the scenes, they're working on it and they're saying, okay, I'm going to get this done, but they don't communicate it back to the person that they're working on it and that they're working to make it happen, and it's going to happen, say 10 days, 15 days. Or if there's a delay, what's going on, so that the person knows. It's just basic respect to communicate what's happening. And so I know that it's like, it's a social skill and it's, you know, a social need, that when someone is busy checking all those boxes, that, you know, to have to take time to be personable, probably doesn't come naturally for a lot of people, myself included. When I get stressed, I'm just like, I shut down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on this. But it's important to communicate to people who essentially are voiceless. I mean, that's who we are. We are essentially most of the time voiceless and unheard. And so it's important to understand that as a culture, that culture of inclusion that we're trying to build includes communicating to a person of what's going on and what the process is going to look like, so that they can prepare and so that they can follow up as well and not feel like they're just being ignored. Yeah. And thank you, Pam. Eli is trying to join. Can you please let him back in, Alana? Kendra, go ahead.
That was just gonna be what I was gonna say, is if you guys could let him in.
Okay, he's back. So if there's nothing more to continue for that, or to include for that, 8B. So 8C is a continued discussion of appropriate city placement for ADA coordinator and mayor's committee on disability. I'm sure that that's all being jumbled around still, because it's the ADA coordinator needs to be hired first. But are there any updates, Regina, for changes in the ADA coordinator position and the mayor's committee position of where we will be hierarchically within the city?
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. There are no plans for any changes right this minute. However, there is an amendment being introduced, a budgetary amendment that'll be heard when the budget's heard at council next Wednesday night, to create the Office of Equity and Inclusion at the city. That was you might remember that was in a resolution. That resolution was pulled and didn't move forward. Now some councilors are bringing it forward as an amendment to the budget. I have asked and suggested that the ADA coordinator would be a great position in that office. But there hasn't been any confirmation, but that's the only update I have right now, I think, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I mean, if we can't be in the mayor's office, then that would be ideal to be under what is essentially a civil rights department. So yeah, and I know we've discussed that. So go ahead, Kendra.
One thing that I was thinking, Madam Chair, is if we should write a letter of support or request for that. I don't think we have done it in the past. If we have, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I would think that would probably be a little bit more of a push to get us in the right direction.
Yeah. And on that, I wonder if it would be more effective if we as individual citizens would be more effective if we all wrote an individual letter in support of it, or as the mayor's committee on disability, or both. I don't know.
Maybe doing both,
yeah,
probably.
Yeah. We can definitely vote to write a letter. It's next Wednesday, Regina. Is that what you said? At the governing body meeting? Yeah. Okay.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. So let me make a note of this.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, because that would need to go out really fast.
Well, the other option is public comment at the meeting,
Yeah.
and there will be a Zoom accessibility for public comment at that meeting.
Okay. Just a show of hands or support. Who would be attending that meeting if possible to speak?
Is it next Wednesday, the 10th?
Mhm.
I'll have to check.
And you can type public comments in there too if you can't attend the meeting. I think if we wrote public comments and spoke, because it's really fast to write a letter by next Wednesday as the committee. Like that requires a lot of us to get together.
We could just, maybe send an email, like a supportive email
To our
them?
city councilors. Yeah.
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 Do we know specifically who's on the council? I don't know at the moment, so.
I can get everyone that information. I can send it. I know where it is.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
And also, I unfortunately have to jump off for another meeting, but thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kendra.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the next item is 8D. Continued discussion of updates of new city website. The city never obtained advising from the Mayor's Committee on Disability on website features and accessibility. Continued lack of ADA compliant information to request accommodations and report concerns. And then I left the rest in there, which I didn't mean to. So I know that it had been updated, Regina. You said that you sent it off, and I did see some of the changes. I didn't get a chance to look at it as in-depth as I wished to with everything going on. But I will look at that and give you feedback, and I really appreciate that being updated. I noticed that the itemized calendar is on there so that someone looking for calendar date can now find it. And that the member lists have been updated, which was my main request. So yeah. And then I will check to make sure, because I know that there's a lot of places where like the ADA coordinator name was hidden or like in a link somewhere or something. And so all of that needs to be updated. So I will go through when I have a chance and get back to you on that to double check and make sure and confirm with you that it's all done. And if I find something, I'll let you know.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I might also add that the web gal is super responsive, and how I submit my request to her is I just go to that report a website issue.
Okay.
And I just put it right in there, and next she does it right away. So if that's as easy for you as anything, that might be an option
Okay.
too. Thank you.
Yeah, I can do that, and I'll CC you what I say to her then. Because yeah, we can just do it directly. Angelique, go ahead.
One thing I did see on the website, and hopefully we can, let me see, I'm gonna turn my camera on for a second. So it says, I know it's hard to see on my phone, but it says celebrating 31 years of ADA. Sorry, so if we could change that, it's gonna be 33 years. And just update the information on there. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that was posted by Tom to celebrate the 31 years. And he did that after he had resigned. So he was really proud of uploading that and sent it to me and was like, look what I did.
I think it's great.
So
Information
it's great.
is
And
great.
I actually really do agree that we need to like celebrate July every year and update the website for that. So I can
Celebrate
add that.
people with disabilities. Yeah, and just, update the information, and when people look on there, just so they know that as a city, we're really trying to be as inclusive as we can and just change things, each year. And yeah, if we could just change that to 33 years, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that, Angelique. So I will include that in my list, and I will help if I'm able to, which I think I am because we have enough time between now and July, to find a really good resource to update it to celebrate the 33rd year. I don't expect you to go around I think Tom just found that and was like, this is wonderful, I'm gonna post it. So so he did, and I was really grateful that he did that. It's wonderful information. So I think that's it for the items. The next is the Mayor's Committee subcommittee reports. If there's no one else, if there's nothing else to add for item 8D. Are there any subcommittee reports?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The senior newsletter said that the senior van is doing all kind of trips with a few exceptions. So I was curious, so I called. And there are no longer any exceptions. As of May 1st, it's completely open like pre-COVID, except more people wear masks, and there's, I think, still cleaning the van a little more. So
That's wonderful. Yay.
progress.
Are there any plans for the Transportation Advisory Board to meet yet, or no?
I haven't heard a word, so.
All right. Pam, go ahead.
I'll just reiterate that there's a statewide effort to update the list of accessible, loop accessible, hearing accessible. It could be the new Wi-Fi list. So it will be on a national registry.
That's very cool. Yeah, I was also thinking of how we can, with the loop system, how we can get that tied to the Governor's Commission on Disability in some way, so that when people are requesting accommodations or information or needs, that it would be included in everything that they're doing as well. Because they do identify accessible buildings and they do things like that. So and they do identify and support accommodation needs. And so I'm kind of thinking, like, how do we pull them in as well to be like a side resource for us, where when people are reaching out for information, then they're included in all of this. Yeah. Angelique, go ahead.
I'm one of the commissioners for the governor, so if you send me that information, I can definitely mention that at the next meeting. We're breaking up into some groups, so yeah, that would be important to do so.
Well,
you.
thank you so much. Are there any other subcommittee reports? No, okay. Next is matters from staff.
Oh, staff.
Thank you,
Alana?
Madam Chair. I don't have any additional matters.
Okay. Thank you, Regina.
A link to the video recording of this meeting will be added to the meeting minutes for this meeting.
Thank you, Lona. Are there matters from the committee? Okay. Aurora and then Pam.
My granddaughter is graduating from high school. I am so grateful. And she's going to college at Fort Lewis in Durango. So I'm very happy.
Oh,
That's
my daughter
awesome.
goes there.
Really?
Mhm.
Small world. That's very
But I'm
cool.
going to pick her up tomorrow afternoon. We leave tomorrow afternoon to go pick her up for the summer.
Oh, does she like? I'm sure she likes it. It
Oh,
seems
yeah.
so nice.
It's beautiful. Good luck to her.
Yeah,
Your
good
granddaughter.
luck.
Yeah.
Great.
Pam?
Oh, this came in and then I'm on the committee.
Thank you.
I'm trying to play catch up for things that I missed. I do not know how the nominations for the ADA awards are going to be taken. I have someone I want to nominate, but I have no idea how to present it.
Angelique, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so we've been discussing creating a website where people can actually nominate people and cast their votes and all of that stuff, because we do want it to be accessible. So we're just not there yet. Just give us a second, but that's definitely one of our ideas that we're tossing around and trying to create.
Very cool.
And you're going to let this committee know when that website's up? How will the community know?
I definitely think you guys will be the first to know once it's up and you guys can contribute your ideas or whatever, like, we just mentioned it. This is something that we just thought of. And so, yeah, as soon as it's up, we'll let you know.
And then
Thank
I have
you.
a second catch up. I need to pick up on the city council meeting, May 10th. Is that going to be fully accessible, Regina? Cart, captions, if I go to it, I can actually function.
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
now-
No, it won't be. And I can say that that would be an amazing thing to bring up. That you aren't able to participate effectively. And I can do it as well. If I'm able to attend, I have to check.
I can check by my calendar, I can be there, but what's the point if I can't hear, I can't read the captions and. But this is the meeting when this is the proposed Civil Rights Committee is going to be voted on.
Well, the
Madam-
thing is with that chart, so this is based on the chart report. And that
Chart or
chart report
cart?
in no way includes disability. They didn't include disability in any way, that not even in their survey questions as to how people identify. And so disability, it was entirely race and gender, and disability was completely excluded from that report. And that is one thing that I am writing to the city council over, because that is a blaring error in that report to me. Disability identity is extremely important, even just as an intersectional identity, because it changes the way that you interact with society and the way that society interacts with you. And it is a huge barrier to inclusion, more so than race. It is a physical block to inclusion. It's not just a behavioral issue or a discrimination issue. It is literal barriers. And that was not identified in that report. And so it supports completely why we want to be under a Department of Equity and Inclusion and why a Department of Equity and Inclusion needs to exist. Regina, go ahead.
Thank you. for the
Sorry.
clarification.
Yeah,
I-
Anj- sorry.
Chart and cart I get so mixed up and I can't follow this conversation. So that's why I say I'm playing catch up. What is the big deal about May 10th? And you ask, can people attend? I can physically go there, but is it worthwhile? And what is cart or chart? I'm mixed up. So thank you for the clarifications.
I can help a little with that. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Pam, for your questions. On May 10th, the budget for fiscal year 24 will be heard by the governing body for consideration for adoption. At that meeting, an amendment will be introduced, I believe, or at least considered to create the Office of Equity and Inclusion, which is an outcome of the chart process.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody's thinking of it as a civil rights. I think they're thinking of it more as a way to try to smooth out the division between people of different, as Chair said, races mostly. But I would really encourage anyone from this group or the community at large to put out the idea that this should really be about inclusion of all people with all identities. And that an ADA coordinator would be a great addition to that. You know, it's where the ADA coordinator should live. Regarding accessibility at the meeting, Pam, if you could call the city clerk or email her specifically and CC me or something like that, that said, you know, I'd like to attend this meeting. It's very important that I can participate in the budget adoption and in any Office of Equity and Inclusion amendment. I need the following accommodations.
Well, there is the hearing loop, and if I can have a selection of seats, I can find a spot where it might work. But
Will
then,
it work now at all?
the last time I was there, certain places worked and certain microphones worked, but then I had to move next to I don't know what, it wasn't cart, it was just an overhead projected type thing with a tiny captioning that was unreadable.
I know.
And I had to get out of the seats where I could hear to go try to get to a seat where I could see what was captioned. So it was so stressful. I just didn't do anything except concentrate on what I wanted to say and hope it fit in.
That might be the best angle for this, is just attend by Zoom and make public comment. I think, because I don't think you're going to have any better results by next Wednesday, because all of those conditions that you just said still exist.
In Zoom, I will be able to see and they can see me. It's just my voice, right? I can't see them.
You can request to see them. I have seen people ask for, as a disability accommodation, to be able to see who they're speaking to. And I know for me as well, that also helps, because if I'm just speaking to a blank screen, I will freeze up because I can't see someone's face to interact with them. And so I definitely would need that as an accommodation as well, to be able to view who I'm speaking to. And really that should be the process. Just, it's so weird that they're making people speak to a blank screen. I don't get that at all.
I have to have the visual cues to even function.
Yeah, so Pam, why don't you and me get together on this, because I think that you should make a formal request for CART, because of the fact that the loop system is not set and is not functional in entirety like it should be. And we will use this as an initiative to get the city clerk to really follow the process that she's supposed to be following.
Okay.
I will get with you probably tomorrow. I'm going to be busy on Friday, but I have tomorrow and then I have this weekend open. So I will get with you on that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other matters from the committee? No, okay, if there are no more matters from the committee, our next meeting is June 7th, 2023 from 3 to 5 p.m. And if there's nothing else to say, then we are adjourned at 5:05 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for a great meeting, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Regina and
Thank
Talona.
you.
Yeah.